Corey, great to be here.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, somebody beat me to the punch on recording it. I love it.
When
All
you
right.
call when you call Brandon in, do you have to go like this? And he comes jogging in from the bullpen?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Uh he's out on the golf course right now.
Oh,
So
okay. He's got a
yeah,
theme song. He's just
yeah,
jogging in, you know.
exactly. So guys, this is recorded. So we'll get started here. I'll be letting people in throughout the webinar as well, and then we'll get the recording sent off to the entire field tomorrow during my weekly address as well. So, everybody, thanks for joining us today to meet with the Sagan team. I met Jono a few months back and came to me with via recommendation from Brandon Beachy about being able to identify global talent for your business. Um, to me, it's a no-brainer to service to utilize to be able to get top talent globally uh, for a fraction of the expense of stateside. So I know Brandon is kind of on a time crunch right now. So what I'd like to do is just before Jono, Kayvon, Carrie, before you guys jump in and Franco as well, before you guys jump in, I want to give Brandon the floor right now just to speak about his experience of working with you guys, and then we'll turn it back over to you to just talk about the program, talk about the benefits and such. So. Brandon, I want to kick it to you. Again, you made the introduction. I just want to, before we let you loose, have you just, discuss with your peers about the why behind Sagan as well as your experience so far.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? I want to make sure you can hear
We
me.
got you. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks, Corey. Happy to make the introduction. I'll just quickly tell you kind of what led me to seek out Sagan. Um, I got to the point in my business where we were expanding and I needed someone to answer the phones full time. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't put it on my GM or my salespeople who are in homes, in attics. And that's honestly, that's the name of our game. If people get paying money marketing wise to get people to call us, it means nothing if we're not answering it every single time. Um, so I hired somebody locally. Started at 40,000 a year. That person was terrible. Ended up around 48,000. Had somebody that stuck with me about a year. After payroll taxes, that was like 54, 56,000. Well, she quit and on a Sunday night, and that was kind of finally the thing that pushed me over the edge. Hey, I got to check into some overseas talent for these positions. So I did, and I had a friend tell me that they had utilized Sagan. Talked to John, talked to the team. The experience was unbelievable. Honestly, I sat with them. We went over exactly what I was looking to fill. They helped me craft ads, and then over the course of about 2 weeks, they got to a point about 2 weeks later where in my inbox was here 8 to 10 15-minute video interviews with candidates from around the world. So I got to watch those, and then I picked three and interviewed them, and then eventually chose one. Um, and she's been maybe my favorite employee ever. She's in Argentina. She started at, I think, $1,000 a month. She's up to, I think, 1350 a month now, and everything I throw at her, she wants to work. The work culture is so different with her, and I've got another guy from Colombia that they helped me find that does my takeoffs for me, and he's full time, and he's at about 1,100 a month. So the scalability with the efficiency of cost is an absolute no brainer. But then the actual what I get out of it is incredible, and the experience with the Sagan team has been awesome. I mean, I've connected you to John and Renee. I don't know, probably 8 to 10 other franchisees. So I think it's a no brainer. And yeah, I enjoyed the experience and am reaping the benefit of the actual labor. And John will tell you why their model, in my opinion, is better than the alternatives out there. But yeah, thank you guys, and I'll turn it over to John.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. John, take it away, man. Here, I'll go like this for you, okay?
Cool.
You're a lefty,
Exactly. You got to call me in now. I played
there you
college
go.
baseball, not nearly at the level Brandon did, but cool. So yeah, right off the bat, we really enjoyed working with Brandon. Of course, I know some other folks. I don't know if they're here or watch this later, but we've worked with Chris White out of Boulder, Bill and Aaron Vanilli in East Valley, Joseph Fleury from Soundshore, and Corey and Tanner from Denver North. So those are the ones that we were able to just, there's probably some others too. But if you recognize any of those names, those are folks within the network that we've supported as well. So I wanted to start with kind of just very, very briefly about my journey, because I think I built and ran and sold a home service company, a home improvement company. And I think there's a lot of people as a small business owner who are, pitching things from a WeWork in San Francisco, right? Oh, it's a new AI tool. Oh, and I'm like, man, I'm just trying to make payroll and make sure my crews don't get in like car accidents. I mean, that's the day to day, right? Just the slog of running a small business. I mean, look, we know what we sign up for, but our ability to kind of persevere is in a different category than somebody who's got some fancy new idea or some tech that they promise is going to change my whatever, right? And so I pulled up an old newsletter that I wrote a couple years at this point. So this is a company we bought called Garage Excel, and it was about $1 million a year when we bought it. And this is what their collateral looked like at the time. And I kind of, we got it, but basically within about a year to about a $6 million run rate. And we did a lot of different things, but I did this kind of farcical post, right, about all the things we dealt with, right? Getting labor letters from attorneys for $150,000 saying they're going to sue us. People stealing $780K in sold but uninstalled work with $19,000 in our bank account. Firing 5 front desk people in 5 weeks. Our website form not working. Driving employees home drunk. Right. So I say that only so that my perspective on all of this is like waking up every morning and taking the pain and just trying to find a way to kind of get to the next level. That was what pushed me on my journey to kind of building a global workforce. That was what pushed me, was I just wanted to have a great company, not a company that was, bleeding, for lack of a better word, right? And so everything that I say I'm not like a tech guy I'm a guy who was in the trenches, loading dumpsters with LSAO at 6 a.m. because we got to get the truck empty before the next install, right? Like that's where I started, and kind of through pain and blood and sweat and treasure was able to get to the next level. Now you guys, as a part of a franchise network, get to skip a few levels, right? You guys are part of a network that distills best practices. And, maybe what we're going to talk about today is an example of some of those best practices. So you don't have to, make some of the silly mistakes that I did, like, letting the phone ring and missing a Google PPC lead that I paid $180 for, or whatever it was. So, that was the journey to kind of get to this point. So what Sagan is we're maybe 70 or 80 folks on our team at this point. What we do is we work with small businesses to directly hire global talent from around the world. So many of you, maybe if you've been on the internet or wherever, are familiar with like virtual assistants or outsourcing or, tech folks in India who help you build software or something like that. And what we do could not be further from that. So what we do is we and Brandon, if he's floating around or whatever, what we do is directly work with folks from around the world that work with small businesses to increase the quality of those businesses, right? Because it's a wonderful labor force, but you also happen to save money. So this is not, I'm embarrassed, I'm outsourcing to the Philippines and these people are terrible. These folks are incredibly impressive, They just happen to be in countries where the cost of living means that I don't need to pay them as much as I do in Southern California when I'm trying to get a front desk person who says, I can't even pay my rent unless you pay me $65,000 a year, which was the labor market that I was trying to hire a CSR, somebody to answer my phones with. So as I will just use just very quickly, and I can show some specific examples, but we have 3 folks of our global team on the call who, again, we're different rates, different compensation, but I think it would be useful. Jono, do you just want to take 30 seconds and talk about where you sit? And, like this is a different worldview, right, guys? So Jono, go ahead.
So I work from New Zealand. I live in the country in New Zealand and I like outdoorsy stuff and horses, but I've been working with American companies for about 5 years. I've built conferences with Americans, and Sagan was well built when I arrived, but it's grown a lot. And what I love about working with Americans is if John and Kayvon were business owners in New Zealand, they would be in all the magazines and everyone would be venerating them and it would be ridiculous and fawning over them. But they're like, America is so full of these incredibly dynamic, fast-paced business people that you just learn so much from and have all this energy for business. And so I bring business development skills, which is outbound outreach and talking with people on the phones and that kind of stuff. And I just absolutely love working with Americans and I'm very grateful to do it from where I live. I don't have to live in a big city, and I'll stop talking because I can talk a bit too much.
We know, John. But as we talked with Corey, right, or as we talk to other business owners, Corey, do you think Jono could talk to prospective franchisees who are interested in joining a brand? Of course, Jono's just a dude. He just happens to be in New Zealand, right? It's not like a second-class citizen who, I mean, he does talk funny, I will say that, but it's a Kiwi funny, not maybe it's an off-putting way of talking. I sometimes have to translate and turn the subtitles on with Jono. Carrie, on the other hand, Carrie, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself and where you sit?
Hi, everyone. So my name's Kerry and I'm from South Africa. I live in Johannesburg. And yeah, this is definitely something that it's incredible. I have the best of both worlds. I travel to the US and I live in South Africa. So I get a bit of both worlds. I get to experience the difference between the 2 worlds. And it's incredible to work for an American company, I can definitely say.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you look at Jono or Kerry or Franco, who I'm going to have introduce himself now as well, the only reason why we're able to get these people at a price that is more accessible than Southern California is not the quality of Kerry or Jono. It's just where they live. What I tell people all the time is in the Philippines, to have a full-time person who cooks and cleans and lives in your house is $100 per month. Just the dollars go differently in different parts of the world. And in South Africa, your rent payment is not 4,000 US a month. It's 400 a month or whatever it is. And so now if Carrie lived in Southern California, you bet your butt she'd be raking me over the coals, right? Because Southern California cost of living is different. But because of the miracle of the internet, I get somebody as wonderful as Carrie or as mediocre as Jono. No, I'm just kidding. As wonderful as Jono at a rate that is different. So Franco, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself as well?
For sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Franco. I'm from Argentina. I'm in the BDR team, like behind the scenes with the RevOps. And yeah, I've been working remotely for the past 5 years-ish. And well, yeah, that we put into practice what we pitch to everybody. We have 80 plus, 90 plus, I don't know how much, John,
I don't know
remote people. So yeah, we are in the trenches.
Awesome. Thank you, Franco. So as you guys are thinking about building your business, and I think about my journey and how this fits in based on what Brandon's talking about, I could never have something like a full-time person answering the phone when I was first getting started because I couldn't afford it. I don't have the revenue, right? So calls forward to my cell phone, calls forward to my sales rep cell phone who's doing double duty, right? I could not have somebody making Instagram videos to generate more leads. Who has the money? In Southern California, I have to pay. Who has the money to hire a video editor? What are you, crazy? I'm going project to project here, right? I'm selling $3,000-$4,000 jobs. Who the heck has 10 grand a month to pay a video editor, right? But what I will say and what I would challenge you to do is to get to that next level as a company, you as an owner operator have to fire yourself from certain jobs so that you can go drive revenue, drive referral relationships, train and supervise that second crew, that third crew, whatever those things are to grow your business while also answering the phone, also doing the crew schedule, also, making social media content. You're going to do a D- job on all of those things. Whereas if you're waking up and driving revenue, what that does is it lets you break out, right? Finally, I can afford a second crew. Finally, I can not have my wife answer the phones and she can focus on driving B2B referral relationships with general contractors, which only she can do or only you can do. There's a lot of people who can answer the phone and say, thank you for calling Koala of Orlando. How can I help you? Right? There's a lot of people who can help you do takeoffs so your sales reps can run twice as many appointments in a day. That was something we did. So we would say, look, if you're a sales rep, if you're not in the home, you're not being utilized appropriately. Your job is to run stinking appointments and take measurements. And having them mess around for 4 hours a day on their laptop was not an efficient use of their time. So we were able to get, I think, somebody who was like an architect or something. Brandon could talk about his takeoff specialist for $1,500 a month. And now my sales reps get to basically throw the measurements and a voice note in Slack or WhatsApp. And within an hour, 2 hours, the takeoff's ready and the estimate's ready to send to the customer. By the way, that sales rep's been running appointments the whole time. And so magically now you're running 6 appointments a day instead of 2 appointments a day because they're not messing around in your ERP or your CRM or your whatever. And so what I would say is the exact thing that is going to break a small business out of that level is for the owner in particular to fire themselves from some of these jobs that can be done equally well or better by someone else so that they can go, again, network with general contractors who might have you do their whole dang development. You can't do that globally. You can't do that from Argentina. Only Brandon can network with that general contractor. Pop by their office with donuts. But Brandon cannot do that if he's stuck in the office uploading receipts to QuickBooks. There's a lot of people who can categorize expenses in QuickBooks, right? So as I think about my journey and how we're able to grow so quickly, it was this forever journey of firing myself from things that other people could do. But I didn't have to replace it with an $80,000 a year person. I got to stick somebody in there who's $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000, which as a small business owner, I could stomach. So Corey, I'm going to pause there because I think that was like a good intro. We can talk specifics. We can look at talent. We can do all sorts of different things from here.
Yeah, I think that we go into some specifics.
Okay,
Yep.
Awesome. So as an example, right now, and I pulled up a few folks just as examples. I pulled 3 up. If I was, say, an owner operator who, I think your average sale price about 3,000, right, Corey? Right. I think most of your jobs 2 or 3,000.
It's about 3,700.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. About 3,700, right? One of the first roles I'd be looking at to get my company to the next level is what I would call kind of a back office generalist. It was Brandon's first hire as well. And this is somebody who can both answer the phone and also do things like crew scheduling, right? That's a very easy hire to do globally. So I pulled a couple people who I think who are literally available for hire now, all of whom I think are less than $10 an hour. So this is an example of someone, and I'll show 2 or 3 people.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm 32 and I'm from Ecuador. I'm a bilingual customer service and operations professional with 9 years of experience collaborating with national and international businesses. I started my career as an assistant manager, helping the CEO.
I think she's asking for $9 or $10 an hour, right? Show you another one. This is Bruna, who's from Brazil, who was a D1 soccer player in the US. If I remember her, I love her. I think she's great. I'm looking for a job to hire her for.
My name is Bruna. I'm originally from Brazil. Been living here since December last year. I lived and studied in the United States for 10 years. I graduated with a business administration degree there with concentration in marketing and a minor in management. Throughout my academic career, I also played soccer.
And I think she's asking for $9 or $10 an hour, maybe less, right? And I'll show you one other one. This is Carlos. He's from Belize. Belize is a very interesting country because English is their first language. So you'll tell right away. I think he's asking for $6 an hour.
Hi, my name is Carlos. I'm from Belize. I'm 25 years old. I do have 4 years experience in the sales industry in different aspects. Working remotely, I have 2 years.
Again, this is a different category, right? This is not the person who, when you called Southwest to try to change your flight, works in a call center, right? These people are members of your team who can become leaders in your team, who can become executives, who can become team leads, who can become, right? Imagine if you hired him and you just said, hey, can you call all of our old leads who didn't close with an offer? I'm sure you guys have offers, right? Like, hey, can you just call them and say, hey guys, it's November, it's a Thanksgiving special. We're doing your attic for free if you do your walls with us or something. I don't even know what the special would be. And he works all of your old leads while you're out running appointments, driving more revenue, kind of supervising your crews, right? At a price of $6 or $7 an hour, how many additional jobs does he need to sell in a month to pay for himself? I'm guessing based on your gross margins, 1. Right? On a $3,800 average ticket, if your gross margins are 50%, if he gets you 1 additional install a month, he pays for himself. If he gets you 2, he's one of your most productive employees. If he gets you 1 a week, he just made you another $3,000 or $4,000 that month, right? And so it's a mindset or a philosophy around saying, where can I take this incredibly high quality workforce and use it to press my business forward? Okay. So the way Sagan works is we have 2 different ways we can do it. Brandon is one of our members, which is a flat annual fee. And within that, you get a lot of support and a lot of hiring. We can also do a one-off hire for you if you're just looking to make like 1 hire. And essentially that's a commission-based hire where you say, I'm looking for a CSR. We go source one for you. You do the final interviews, as Brandon said, and then you pay us a flat fee if you decide to make a hire. Now, the very important thing that we do differently that Brandon mentioned is we do not mark up their hourly rate forever. Okay. So if you go to virtualassistants.com or something like that, they're going to give you somebody who they pay $4 and they bill you out at $8. And that is their business model. Okay. Our business model is much more like an executive recruiter, where if they're worth $4, you pay $4.
¿Me puede confirmar si Sebas y Celso están
Javier. Más mejor. Gracias. Okay. Our business model is a one-time fee, and then you hire that person directly forever. Okay. That is the way that our business works. We like that because you get better people, because Carrie or Franco or Jono would not come work for me if I was hiring via an agency and they were only getting 30 cents of every dollar they were billed out at, right? You don't get good people. It's like being a temp, right? Good people don't want to be temps, right? People who have no options want to be temps. And it is the same with the global workforce. If I said, Carrie, you're being billed out at $5,000 a month, but you only get 1,500 of it, how long do you think Carrie's going to stick around? You think Carrie wants to have a career like that, where she's making 25% of what she's billed out at? Of course not. So that's why when we think about Sagan, kind of, we do the direct hire model. For most of the hires you guys would be looking at, it's a one-time fee of a couple $1,000. Right? Depends exactly on what the salary is and stuff like that. But at that point, they're yours forever. You can work with them for the next 10 years. You don't owe me another dollar. So that's kind of the core model. I'll show you guys one other thing, just so you have a sense of salaries and stuff like that, because I think that's a really important piece of this, so you can get a sense. Okay, so can everybody see my screen okay? Okay. So this is our compensation guide. This is based on people we've hired recently. So the first thing I will show you guys is we always talk about drinking our own champagne. So this is our leadership team, okay? So this is me. This is Kayvon, who's on the call. This is Renee, who was born in Mexico. Bincy's from India. Brian's American. Russian, Colombian, Kiwi. That's Jono. Jesus is Venezuelan. Jermaine is Philippines, and MJ is Philippines. So this is our leadership team at Sagan, right? So we are a global team kind of from the studs, right? These are some of the countries where our team works. We think it's about 29 countries. We often lose track. And these are some of the roles we've hired for, guys, just to give you a sense, right? Supply chain, purchasing, automation, marketing, influencers, account executives, developers, right? If it can be done remotely, it can be done globally, right? That's our philosophy. So if we look at actual people here, right? And this is available for free. We can send it out afterwards, Corey. When you send the recording out, we can send this as well. This is just a document we put together every year. We have Latin America here, Central and Eastern Europe, Africa, India, Pakistan, and Philippines. These are places we hire from. And you can look at, say, for example, an operations coordinator in Latin America. Price range is $1,500 to $2,500, and that's full-time working your hours. Okay. And that's the range that we hire for this role. It's a little less expensive in Philippines and Africa. Non-South Africa, Africa, I would say. So that is oftentimes Kenya or Nigeria. South Africa ends up being like Latin America or Central Eastern Europe. But we have lots and lots of data points about if we go down to, bookkeepers, sales, right? But if we go down to sales, let's do social media media manager. Corey's like, man, we need to make more social media content. But man, I don't know if I can, stretch our budget sitting here right in Florida. Social media manager who is incredibly experienced from Latin America is between 1,500 and 2,500, right? That's somebody probably with 10 years experience to help you guys make more LinkedIn content or Instagram content, Facebook content, right? So that's some ideas. Here's some sales roles, guys. Cold callers, very popular in home services. People cold calling to generate B2B relationship, things like that. These are some of the rates that you can see here. Lead gen folks, sales support, inbound sales, right? Those are kind of like people who answer your phones. So you can get a sense of the rates we're talking about here. But the idea is these are awesome people who are incredibly high quality that small businesses can afford. You also happen to save money. It is not about cutting costs and yanking people out. It's about saying, wow, Carrie's incredible. And Carrie, I love you, but you lived in Southern California. You'd probably hit me up for $200,000 a year. And I'm like, I can't, right? Thank God Carrie's in South Africa because now I can afford her, right? And so Carrie is just as wonderful, whether she's sitting in Southern California or South Africa, but I get to take advantage of the internet, which means Carrie can answer my phones for my Southern California business and help me close more deals. Okay, I'll pause there. Corey, thoughts, questions, comments?
Let's turn some questions over to the franchisees that we have on the call. We've got plenty of franchisees here to be able to ask the team about processes and any general questions. So I'll turn it over to the franchisees.
Yeah, I got some questions. Corey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, cool. So if we were looking for, like, we have a couple roles, positions that we're kind of looking where we can utilize this. So social media content. So, we take raw videos, send it to you guys to edit and post them, accounting, bookkeeping stuff, and then obviously project management, similar to what Brandon uses to receive takeoffs, complete the takeoff, possibly put the bid together, send it up, follow up. So would we be hiring basically 3 different individuals for this? Or like, is there one person that can do like all of it?
Yep. Great question. First of all, Avinash, Kemcho, Majama.
Hey, there you
go. Okay. First thing I would say is role specialization is something that you can get with global talent. That who here has had like a front desk guy or girl who wears 17 hats? Because it's the only way. Yeah, we all have, right? Where you're like, you do light invoicing, you answer the phone, you do the crew schedule, you also do purchasing because you're like, man, I gotta make my nut of 50 grand a year plus, FICA and all that fun stuff, right? What global talent allows you to do, Avinash, is you go by Avi or Avinash?
Either one.
Okay, Avi, is what it allows you to do is have somebody who wakes up in the morning and specializes. So what I would say is the kind of person who can do really good takeoffs is probably a different personality than the kind of person who you want answering your phone and reworking old leads. They're just, I barely know the password to our CRM because I'm a sales guy, right? I like talking. Right? If you ask me to do invoicing, I jump out my window. And it's the same with a global workforce, right? You're talking to a guy like Jono. I don't know if Jono's ever touched CRM in his life because he's a sales guy, right? You have to threaten to withhold his commissions and then maybe he'll open it and write 3 words of notes. And then the minute I turn my back, he's like, oh, I lost my password, boss. Sorry. Right. So what I would say, Avi, is it's the same with the global workforce, which is oftentimes you can clump roles. So the person who does takeoffs might also be able to do, say, crew scheduling. Those are somewhat, kind of crewy, customery. But the person answering the phone and reworking old leads, I probably would not have to do your bookkeeping. You're just not going to find that skill set. Yeah.
And so they don't have to be like full-time like employees, right? We could come
That's up to you.
Like we want 15 hours a week, and this is what it would entail. Correct?
Yeah, that's up to you. Generally speaking, my recommendation is you're not going to get somebody as committed if you don't give them full time, right? Generally speaking, if you're kind of like, man, I don't really have a full-time role here, I would find a buddy in the network where you guys own this person full-time, but it's the two of you guys, right? So it's Avi and Brandon splitting a takeoffs guy. Right.
Okay.
That's actually a best practice, because if you have somebody who's 15 hours a week, they're going to be looking for a full-time job on the side. Right. Like they're just, so what I would say is, the other thing I'd say, Avi, in particular, and I've gone on this rant before, and I saw a question, which I'll answer in a second. I've gone on this rant before, which is, let's say somebody is a sales rep and they're reworking old leads that didn't close on the first visit to the house, and you pay them $1,500 a month. Okay. That's their base. And you give them 5% of whatever they sell, 10%, whatever. They need to close one job a month to pay for themselves. Because the labor rate is so low, I don't stress about utilization rate, right? They could sell one job and take the rest of the week off, sell one job, sell the rest. Now, what always happens is they come in, they start doing stuff, and you're going to give them other things naturally. But I would not say, oh, I can't hire somebody until, I think they're going to have a stacked day full of lead. If they make one marginal sell per week, they're making 4 times what they cost per month. So I wouldn't stress. This is not a $75,000 a year rep who you have to keep chocked to the gills with appointments, or else you lose money on their salary. Right. So, I would utilization rate is not as important when the person's making $9 an hour. It's hilariously important when they're making $79 an hour and they're an HVAC technician.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. And just 2 quick follow-up questions on that. So if we own different franchise concepts, right? So we can utilize, like, if this person is paid from our management company, they could be utilized for all the different concepts, right? Okay.
Yeah.
They
are the relationship is with you, Avi. It's not like staffing where, hey, I want to give them a bonus, John. No, Avi, just send them some money, man. Right.
Okay.
They work for you. Yeah.
Okay. And then last question, just to confirm, they work on our time zone?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
They work on whatever time zone you want. Now, what I would say is there are some roles where we love having people overnight. Like people, closing the books overnight. And when I come in at 8 a.m, I know yesterday's sales numbers, but that's totally up to you, right? Generally speaking, 90% of our team works our exact hours, right? Yes, for sure.
Cool. So appreciate it. Thank you.
I saw a good question. We have a replacement guarantee. So yeah, if somebody doesn't work out, what I would say about not working out is ultimately these are human beings. Right? We're not perfect. You're not perfect, whatever. I'd say maybe 5-10% of the time, it's pretty obvious almost right away if somebody's not going to work out. And we replace them at no cost. So yeah. The other thing I would say is, and Franco, you're probably the best person to speak to this, but I think it's always important to remember, which is, our managing director, Bincy, has been with me for 9 years now, 8 or 9 years. She has 70 or 80 people who work for her. Franco, could you comment about in Argentina to work directly for a US company and get paid in US dollars? Is this like a job that is embarrassing, or is this like, oh my God, all my friends are hitting me up to try to get me hired? Like, what is the status of working for an American company?
It's the second option. It's awesome. A couple of years ago when I just started, it was pretty new idea, but after that, like everyone's hitting me up on LinkedIn, because I use a little bit on LinkedIn, to talk about ourselves. And yeah, everyone's trying to start this journey on working with US companies remotely. So
yeah, it's not
because,
so you want a career. I hope, Franco, don't
Yeah.
disappoint me now, Franco, but you'd love a career with us, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there are two things that you gotta take into account.
You
One
could have
is that
really, Franco, you could have really messed that up, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for not,
and
so
this is
go
not
ahead.
practice, I swear.
Yeah.
No, but I was saying, yeah, here we value a lot like practicing English, which working with you guys gives us that opportunity. And I mean the average salary working remotely is way above what is paid. I mean, people get paid here, so that's also an incentive for people to work remotely
Yeah.
for US companies in this case.
Carrie, would you say the dynamic is similar working locally in Johannesburg versus working remotely for an American company from Johannesburg?
For sure. I think when I tell people I'm working for a American company, they're like, "What? Really? Like, how do you do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I do." Now, obviously enjoy working EST hours, so it really frees up my day so I can sort out my children, and then I work in the evening when they're in bed already.
Yeah. And I know, Jono, your other career option was to farm sheep, right? I assume that that's your
Yeah, I was
other
hot
option.
off the tails of farming some sheep. Yeah, but I got a little bit restless doing that on the
Yeah.
family farm. Yeah, so
But I would
but yeah.
say, Jono gets access to a, fast moving, aggressive career track that being in rural New Zealand, he doesn't have access to, but with a fast internet connection, now he gets to, Jono's working with private equity guys sitting in Manhattan doing his job, right? And it's awesome, right? So what I'd say the other thing when we're talking about replacements is once somebody makes it 30 days, essentially, unless you're a really bad boss or something changes, they're going to be with you forever, right? One of my biggest frustrations with my staff in Southern California was, they all wanted to be YouTubers. And so I'd invest all this time and effort and hey, I'm going to mentor you. And Corey, there's so much training I want to give you. And 2 weeks later, somebody pays him $1 an hour more and they no call, no show. And I'm like, what? Right. And so what I would say is, as a small business owner, finding a group of people who I can emotionally invest in, who also want to emotionally invest in me, helped me fall back in love with building my company because I was so worn out by turnover and people that I cared about who didn't love me back, and that kind of hustle mentality, which is sometimes hard to find on the lower end of the labor range in Southern California in particular. But I was able to find people who I could afford who also loved me back. And so this is not a job hopping crowd, right? This is not a job hopping crowd. This is as long as you guys aren't completely, off in la la land, these are folks who want to, hey, in 5 years, I'd love to be your operations manager, right? Like Franco, like obviously we're grooming you to be account exec, right? I mean, that's what we're working towards, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure, right? And Franco's not, oh, I'm going to go local. So if a person hired, do we pay for their computer and high-speed internet? Pretty much everybody comes with good computer, and it's one of the things we test for. So you don't have to pay any of that stuff unless you want to upgrade it. But yeah, you don't pay for internet or computer. No. Pretty much everybody has a good laptop these days. It's actually one of the reasons why remote work is possible, is because the high-speed internet only used to be available in like big cities and buildings, but now everybody's got high-speed internet in freaking Nigeria or whatever, and they can just join a Zoom call off of $500 laptop, and it's like they were sitting in Fort Lauderdale. Like, one of the things I tell people is once a job goes remote, you're now competing with the world, right? You have to have installers. Of course, you have to have 1099 or W-2 sales reps who run appointments. You're never going to, but an accountant who wants to work remotely, they could be in New Delhi, Buenos Aires, Johannesburg, or Minneapolis, and it's all Zoom. It's all the same. And now that same person is competing with an incredibly high quality global workforce. So the in-person stuff is going to be in person. I'll say one other thing about that I think is important. That was a big transformation for me about in-person roles. Obviously, we still need installers, right? We need guys to go and, what do you guys say, Corey, blow insulation? Is that, did I mess that up, or is that did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. I was re-listening to my podcast with Brandon. I think he said the phrase blow insulation. You still need that guy. I can tell you in Southern California, I could afford a $23 an hour semi-skilled guy. That was about what it took to get a guy who was sober and on time, right? I was also paying my front desk person, let's say $23 an hour. Okay. What I was able to do by saying my front desk person, the person answering my phone, I'm going to pay 9. I was able to pay my semi-skilled laborer 28, and it didn't cost me any more money. I just redirected some of that payroll, but the quality of labor you can get for 28 instead of 23, or for 21 instead of 16. I don't know what the Florida market is like, Corey, but if you're in fast food worker range versus being 15% above that, the quality of your in-person labor magnifies incredibly by just bumping the pay 15%. But as business owners, we're like, I can't do that. I don't have the margins. You do if you don't pay your front desk person $28 an hour. Right. And so for me, I was actually able to solve a lot of my in-person challenges by bumping my semi-skilled laborer pay 15% without having to raise prices or jank up my margins. So it actually just creates a more efficient operating system so I could pay that crew member. My crew lead started making $32 an hour. They're not going anywhere. That's an incredibly well-paying job for a crew lead in Southern California. But before, I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it. I wouldn't have made any money. My margins were already tight enough. So other questions?
There's a question here in the chat about raises. When it comes to pay, how often do they come requiring a pay increase, or how does that work?
Well, the first thing everybody at Sagan should know, I never bump pay. So Franco, Kerry, John, I don't even think about it. No, I'm just kidding. What I would say is we do them annually. I mean, broadly speaking, that's what we do. It's just like any normal, I say normal, but Jono, we do a compensation review once a year. If he gets a promotion, we'll probably pay him more. If Franco does something great, I'll bonus him. Right. So what I would say is it is exactly like you were hiring somebody in the US. It's exactly like that. In many ways, it's simpler because you don't have to do FICA, you don't have to do withholding. I don't get letters in the mail about somebody whose back child support hasn't been paid, and I got to now insert myself. Right? I used to get those letters every week. It's actually a lot more straightforward. So what I would say is it's pure free market. If you want to give them a raise, give them a raise. If you don't. Right? There's no none of that stuff. Just another question from Dave. Excellent question, Dave. This is usually, I'll give you the short answer, then I'll give you the long answer. The short answer is it's incredibly simple, right? That's the short answer. The long answer is, the longer answer is, first of all, I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. So, do your own research. I will tell you what lots of people do, including us. These folks are not W-2s and they're not 1099s. Those are US taxpayer designations. So we get a W-8 Ben on file in case we ever get audited. And it's Franco signing a document that says, I am not a US taxpayer. I pay my own taxes in Argentina. That's basically what it says. Franco does not do work in the US, does not live in the US, right? So we get a W-8 Ben on file, and I send Franco $1,100 and he gets $1,100. Franco is responsible for the tax burden in Argentina. In terms of pay transfer, we actually have some relationships with some services, but you are free to use whatever you'd like. They are all the equivalent of PayPal. So if you've ever used PayPal or Zelle, it's that easy, right? Hey, Kerry, here's a link, input your information, your South Africa bank account. And, from your phone, you tap 2 buttons and it says, would you like Kerry to pay the fee or do you want to pay the fee? And it's $16 a month or $19 a month. And I sent US dollars to a service, and Kerry says, hey, you've gotten your money available. And Kerry says, I'd like it deposited in this account or that kind of thing. So it is, again, it's another reason why this has become more popular is 10 years ago, you had to send like wires or something and it took 2 weeks. And now there's all these fintech companies that are, you download an app on your phone and you can pay 30 people in about 20 minutes. So it's another thing. So very, very straightforward. No, workers' comp's US worker, right? Workers' comp, FICA, payroll tax, none of that. So I send Jono $1,000 a month and he gets $1,000 a month and he deals with his, I unfortunately pay Jono more than that, but I'd love to pay Jono that much. No, but he takes care of his New Zealand-based taxes. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Dave. I guess as anybody's coming up with other questions, the last thing I'd say here is I don't consider this outsourcing, and I don't consider this replacing Americans. We almost never replace Americans. What we do is we take your stressed out operations coordinator or stressed out owner operator and get them help so their business can be bigger. This is not like I'm getting rid of Betty and Thomas. No, it's like Betty and Thomas are on the verge of a nervous breakdown because we added a third crew, right? We added a third crew, and I can't afford to have 2 more full-time folks, but I'm going to get them some help and take crew scheduling and crew recruitment off of their plates so they can focus on a wonderful customer experience for Koala, installation jobs. And so it's not, I'm getting rid of Betty. It's Betty, do more of the things you like doing and less of the things you don't like doing. Franco's here to help. And so this is not a rip and replace. Oh man, I served in the government. I served my country, right? I'm as patriotic as they come. This is about building a better company that can be bigger, faster, stronger, close jobs faster, provide better service, get more referrals. It is not me trying to make an extra couple bucks off the back of getting rid of Diane, the girl who's been with me for 3 years. It is not that. It is a bigger, faster, more aggressive company that can buy another territory because you finally feel like you can scale operationally without having a nervous breakdown. Everybody wins if I buy another territory, and nobody wins if I'm stuck with one crew stressed out because I'm up Sunday night doing the crew schedule. So that's maybe my last kind of like thematic summary is this is not rip and replace. This is not something to be embarrassed about. This is something to say, I want to answer the phone after 2 rings during business hours, 6 days a week. And right now it takes 9 rings because I'm in an attic. That is not how you're going to get to the next level. It's 2 weeks and Carrie saying, hello, Koala of Denver, how can I help you? In 2 rings, right? It is not it going to voicemail and texting them back when you get out of the attic. So that's kind of what drove me to do it, was to build a better company. It was not to make an extra buck by ripping out Americans. No way. No way. Other stuff, Corey.
Awesome. This has been great. How do our franchisees get a hold of you guys?
That's a great question. Jono, you want to drop some email addresses in the comment? Maybe probably your email address. I'm around. I think some other stuff, Jono or Kayvon, you guys can drop in there. Definitely compensation guide. I did a podcast with Brandon where we actually got into detail about kind of some of his journey and some of his team and stuff like that. That's super interesting. I was re-listening it in preparation of this. That's a great one. Those are probably the best ways. We'll just drop some links in here, and then Corey will also send them to you in an email so you can kind of send them along with the recording or whatever.
Yep, perfect. I'll send the we got the link to the interview with Brandon. John will just drop that in. I'll put all of the links in tomorrow's address as well. So
Awesome. Corey, I also I've got some upcoming travel to Florida, so I owe you a beer, you owe me a beer. I don't know which one it is, but
sounds good.
I'll reach out when I'm in town.
Sounds good. All right. Well, hey, to the entire Sagan team, thank you very much. For sharing about the program, answering the questions. Again, I feel that for the locations that are looking to grow and scale, it's a no-brainer to utilize your service. So we look forward to a long and fruitful relationship.
Fantastic. I will stick around if anybody else has any other questions. I just saw Kevin pop on video. So if anybody has any other questions, I'll stick around as well for a few minutes. So thanks, everybody. Great to meet you. Thanks,
Awesome.
Avi.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. How does the annual fee, what does that look like?
Yeah. So think of it like Costco, which is, our one-off hiring is, we usually charge about 30% of annual salary, depending on the rate. That's, maybe $3,000-$4,000 a hire, something like that. What the annual membership is it is $1,000 a month. You get to pay monthly. It's an annual commitment, but within that, you get 6 hires that are custom sourced. You get access to our talent pool. You get unlimited replacements. You get our continued education offering. So it's more of a commitment from you. You got to commit to us for the year, but then you get like lights out pricing. It's like wholesale pricing versus retail pricing, but we lock probably 95% of our customers are our members, are our annual members. But if you're just getting started, hey, I only need to make 1 hire, do the one-off hiring. That's the better fit. But I think Brandon's a member. Most of our customers are members just because the math kind of, it sounds like you have a couple different companies or a couple different territories. The math is stunningly clear to do the membership versus the one-off hiring. But
Okay.
We,
And the
we do
membership
both.
and the annual thing, you have to do it for the whole year. Like you
Yeah.
can't, like if, yeah.
Correct. It's Costco, right? You commit
Yeah.
to us for the year and we give you like, mind blowing pricing. That's kind of the deal.
Oh.
Yeah. That answer your question, Avi?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Other questions, guys? Alan, Kevin, you guys got anything? No? Cool. You guys are in it, man. I love talking to, I would say there's a part of me that misses being in the home service space, but there's a part of me that, you guys are in it, man. It's awesome what you guys do every day.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks again.
Thanks, Corey.
We'll all chat soon. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Bye-bye.